¿Eres profesor de inglés y buscas que tus estudiantes dominen el idioma? El programa de especialización en enseñanza del idioma inglés de la Universidad Ricardo Palma, PEI, es para ti. Está dirigido a profesores que buscan mejorar sus perspectivas laborales y liderar en la enseñanza de inglés. El contenido del programa ha sido especialmente diseñado para que domines los procesos de enseñanza-aprendizaje de inglés en la era digital. Como estudiante del PEI, tienes acceso a conferencias a cargo de expositores internacionales del más alto nivel. Recibes el material y plataforma digital de forma gratuita. Lo último en la enseñanza del inglés en el programa más completo del mercado. Gracias a su doble certificación, accedes al examen internacional TOEFL ITP de manera gratuita. Cuentas además con una biblioteca exclusiva y préstamo de libros. El programa te permitirá trabajar con niños, jóvenes y adultos. Vive una experiencia única. Las inscripciones ya están abiertas. Únete al PEI y conviértete en líder en esta fascinante área de la educación. ¿Eres profesor de inglés y buscas que tus estudiantes dominen el idioma? El programa de especialización en enseñanza del idioma inglés de la Universidad Ricardo Palma, PEI, es para ti. Está dirigido a profesores que buscan mejorar sus perspectivas laborales y liderar en la enseñanza de inglés. El contenido del programa ha sido especialmente diseñado para que domines los procesos de enseñanza-aprendizaje de inglés en la era digital. Como estudiante del PEI, tienes acceso a conferencias a cargo de expositores internacionales del más alto nivel. Recibes el material y plataforma digital de forma gratuita. Lo último en la enseñanza del inglés en el programa más completo del mercado. Gracias a su doble certificación, accedes al examen internacional TOEFL ITP de manera gratuita. Cuentas además con una biblioteca exclusiva y préstamo de libros. El programa te permitirá trabajar con niños, jóvenes y adultos. Vive una experiencia única. Las inscripciones ya están abiertas. Únete al PEI y conviértete en líder en esta fascinante área de la educación. ¿Eres profesor de inglés y buscas que tus estudiantes dominen el idioma? El programa de especialización en enseñanza del idioma inglés de la Universidad Ricardo Palma, PEI, es para ti. Está dirigido a profesores que buscan mejorar sus perspectivas laborales y liderar en la enseñanza de inglés. El contenido del programa ha sido especialmente diseñado para que domines los procesos de enseñanza-aprendizaje de inglés en la era digital. Como estudiante del PEI, tienes acceso a conferencias a cargo de expositores internacionales del más alto nivel. Recibes el material y plataforma digital de forma gratuita. Lo último en la enseñanza del inglés en el programa más completo del mercado. Gracias a su doble certificación, accedes al examen internacional TOEFL ITP de manera gratuita. Cuentas además con una biblioteca exclusiva y préstamo de libros. El programa te permitirá trabajar con niños, jóvenes y adultos. Vive una experiencia única. Las inscripciones ya están abiertas. Únete al PEI y conviértete en líder en esta fascinante área de la educación. ¿Eres profesor de inglés y buscas que tus estudiantes dominen el idioma? El programa de especialización en enseñanza del idioma inglés de la Universidad Ricardo Palma, PEI, es para ti. Está dirigido a profesores que buscan mejorar sus perspectivas laborales y liderar en la enseñanza de inglés. El contenido del programa ha sido especialmente diseñado para que domines los procesos de enseñanza-aprendizaje de inglés en la era digital. Como estudiante del PEI, tienes acceso a conferencias a cargo de expositores internacionales del más alto nivel. Recibes el material y plataforma digital de forma gratuita. Lo último en la enseñanza del inglés en el programa más completo del mercado. Gracias a su doble certificación, accedes al examen internacional TOEFL ITP de manera gratuita. Cuentas además con una biblioteca exclusiva y préstamo de libros. El programa te permitirá trabajar con niños, jóvenes y adultos. Vive una experiencia única. Las inscripciones ya están abiertas. Únete al PEI y conviértete en líder en esta fascinante área de la educación.
All right. We're gonna get started. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. I see some students from the specialization program, some teachers. Welcome, everyone. All the community members of the teaching community joining us today. Welcome. We are about to explore a very inspiring topic, teaching English to kids versus teaching English young adults. So I imagine that you are all into teaching. You can let us know in the comments if you teach young children or if you teach young adults or adults in general, to get the idea of the audience today. My name is Simon Schwarzenberg. I'm going to be the host this afternoon and evening. And this is an area that requires not only solid pedagogical knowledge, but also creativity, empathy, adaptability, you know, in today's world. And working with these age groups means understanding their unique learning needs, their interests, and their different motivations, right? So, yes, today we're going to learn how to design lessons that can make English come alive through these, meaningful and enjoyable experiences. So, before I introduce our speakers today, I'm going to let you know what we're going to do this afternoon. We're going to divide two sessions. So, one session is going to be in charge of Miss Nilda Basan. She's going to talk about teaching kids in general. And then the second part of the evening is going to be in charge of Monica Melendez. She's the director of the program, and she's going to talk about teaching young adults. And well, all these topics and all these and all that information that we're going to be sharing with you today is part of the specialization program in English language teaching. So, before I introduce our speaker today, just a quick reminder that during the session, you can ask questions by raising your hand. You can use the Zoom chat box. We'll also be sharing a link where you can register to receive your certificate. So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Miss Nilda Basan. She has over 10 years of experience teaching English to children and adults. She's a dedicated and passionate educator with a proven track record of helping students achieve their language goals. Currently pursuing a degree in secondary education with a specialization in language and literature at Marcelino Champagnat University. Ms. Basan is committed to continuous professional growth and to staying up to date with the latest teaching methodologies and best practices. At Idiomas Ricardo Palma, the Language Center of Ricardo Palma University, Ms. Basan serves as an English teacher, exam designer, and teacher trainer. She also teaches English at Jesus Salvador School. She fosters a supportive and engaging learning environment that promotes language development, confidence, and academic success. So, Nilda, it is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you very much. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Simon. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'm actually very, very excited to tell you about a little bit of my experience as a teacher. So, well, teaching is actually one of the most exciting and rewarding areas in education, right? Especially teaching English to young learners. So today, I would like to share with you, let me see. Well, this is our topic, right? Teaching English to young learners. And to start with our presentation, I would like to show you a short video, and I would like you to observe check on the details, okay? This is something that we usually, as teachers, have to face in our classrooms. So I am going to share with you the video. Give me just a moment. And you can write in the comments, what do you see? All right, so let's have a look at it.
You have to match the tone. Class. Class. Keep quiet.
Okay, so please write. You can write in the comments, what did you see in the video? What did you observe? What did you observe in the video? Maybe you had an experience like that, right? The video is related to class management, right? And actually class management is sometimes, well, most of the time, very scary for us as teachers, right? But, all right, the teacher is using the emotions. Great. Yes, that is actually a technique that we can apply in our classrooms, right? The idea is to get the students' attention. Once I was told that all of us teachers start teaching as little kittens, right? But eventually with practice and some techniques that we can apply, we can turn these kittens into lions. So this is it. Actually, classroom management, as I said before, is sometimes scary for us, right? But there are some things that we have to understand whenever we are going to teach children. And this is what we are going to see today. So look at today's session. Today, we are going to talk about, we're going to see what makes young learners different. We are going to see also good and bad classroom experiences. I am going to tell you a little bit about some of my experiences. We are going to see also class essentials, what we can do and we cannot do. We're going to talk about tools and materials for success, of course, a lesson framework, and finally, we are going to see some tips and encouragement. So let us get started with today's session. We are going to start with the first topic, which is what makes young learners different. And that is something that we must understand. Sometimes we tend to think that kids or children are just smaller people. They are like adults, but small. But they are not. They have different needs. They have also different contexts. So in order to understand a little bit what is actually teaching children, we have to take into account that they, as children, have short attention spans. It means that, for example, a 5-year-old might focus only for 5 to 10 minutes. So it means that we cannot consider a long class for children. So we have to prepare our classes taking into account those, right? I can see in the comments that teacher is calling their students' attention using body language. Very good, excellent. This is what we saw in the video as well, right? Okay, so we were here and they have short attention span. So we have to take into account that we cannot prepare a long session for children because they are going to pay attention for short periods of time. So we can consider some pauses, and we are going to see what we can include in those pauses too. Also, we have to consider that they learn through play. And this is actually their natural learning method. They like to play, they love to play. And in our sessions, actually, playing can be actually a very important tool that we can apply, that we can use in order to help them learn. And I am going to tell you a little bit more in some minutes. Also, repetition is very important, although we know that with adults, we don't repeat. For children, repetition is very important because they, when they repeat, for example, a song, when they repeat the routines, even in your class, they make them feel safe, secure. They know what you are going to continue doing in class. For example, when you enter the class and you say hello, right? You can use a song for some sessions and they know what this song is about. They can learn some phrases as well, and they can repeat them and repeat them and repeat them until they make them theirs to use those phrases in another context. So repetition is very important for them. Also, what is also important is we need to understand that they need movement. You can also consider in your sessions some movement. For example, you can use songs. Also, you can play. You can make some active pauses for them not to be in the same place for a lot of time. Right? Because remember that they have short attention spans and they need to make a pause, a break, and they need movement, they need play, they need repetition. And also, what is also important is that they respond emotionally. At this point, I have to tell you that something very important is to build a good rapport with the student. Students, when they leave home and they get into the classroom, they see teachers as another kind of parents. So they feel protected, they feel connected with us. And it is very important that we build a good rapport and try to build also a good environment, because this good environment is going to help them learn better. And when they get that connection with the teacher, actually it makes them not only connect emotionally, but also they are going to respond to the goals that you have set for the class, right? All right, so this is something to start. We need to understand this context about children, about kids. Well, with this information, I am going to tell you that as you saw at the beginning, I have some years of experience teaching children. But in those years that I have actually as experience, at the beginning, I also made some mistakes, right? And this is what I am going to tell you about. Actually, I am going to tell you about good and bad experiences. But before I start with the good ones, I think I am going to start with the bad. And I am going to tell you what happened. I remember that I had a class of 6 years old. And I remember 6 or 7, I am not so sure about it. But I remember that we were talking about routines, daily routines. You know that we use present simple to talk about daily routines. But I thought that it was going to be a good idea to give them a worksheet, okay? But for them to write sentences. Well, I want you to tell me, please write in the comments, why do you think this worksheet or this activity went wrong for a group of 6 or 7 years old students? Why do you think it went wrong? Please feel free to write your answers in the comment. Analyze the situation with me. I'm going to repeat the situation just in case. I was teaching to a group of 6 or 7 years old. Okay, we were talking about routines, present simple, and I thought that it was going to be a good idea to give them a worksheet to write sentences. Okay, so what do you think it went wrong? It's the question. Aha. Okay, I see some comment. Thank you so much. All right. They haven't learned to write yet, of course, because they are started writing in Spanish. Yes, and I didn't know that. Well, I wasn't aware of that at that moment, because they are starting to read and write, of course, in their own language. So writing in English is very hard, isn't it? They didn't know how to write their ideas also. Yes, right? They are just learning how to write. You are definitely right. They don't write it even in Spanish. Yes. Well, yes, right? It was necessary to know about the stage in which they were, of course, definitely. They don't even know the grammar yet, of course. So yes, I am admitting a mistake, right? Exactly. And this is what it went wrong, actually. All of those things that you are saying in the comments is what I understood after some years of experience. But in that situation, in that part of my life as a teacher, I didn't know. Well, and also, of course, that is very important. Mercedes said they don't know how to follow instructions. And also, that is very important to give them. I'm going to tell you about in a moment. Look at this. Well, yes. Actually, what I started observing with that activity is that they got frustrated. They started to get bored. They started to start talking and standing up, and class management disappeared. Oh, and yes, actually, yes, they distracted. Of course, they distracted and started distracting others. And I felt off, of course. And as you said, well, actually, this was an inappropriate material for the age, because we know that at this age, they are learning writing and reading in Spanish. So making them writing in English or reading in English, it was very complicated, right? And also it was too much writing, because if you see the education in Spanish, they start writing maybe words, isolated words, short sentences, but I pretended them to write a whole sentence talking about the routine. Another thing that went wrong is that they didn't have movement or interaction. And as we learned a few seconds ago, they need to be active, right? They need to play, they need repetition, they need movement, they need some pauses. And finally, we didn't have that emotional connection, right? At that moment, they thought, or they could have think that I didn't understand their feelings, their needs, right? The skills that they had at that point of their lives. So this is what went wrong. And I felt awful, yes, I have to admit. But actually, it helped me to learn and to share this experience anytime I had to with my peers. Now I am going to tell you another thing that I learned also, and well, after this experience, and this is something good. Yes, well, I have to tell you that in another part of my teaching, I had a class of, I think, 5 years old, okay? And we were talking about animals, farm animals, if I am not mistaken. And what I thought it was going to be a good idea, I brought a hat and I told them that it was a magical hat. Inside the hat, I had some animals. I had some toys, animals, okay? And we started playing. I asked each of the students to take out a toy animal out of the box of the hat, sorry. And they started taking out the animals. We learned the names of the animals. They started even making the sounds of animals, right? We sang the Old MacDonald song, right? We were singing, we were playing. They were really engaged. Why do you think it went good? This activity went good. Please write your answers in the comments. I would like to read them as well. What do you think? Yes, right? Gamification. Of course, interactive games, activities, yes. Very good. I included the senses, yes. I was including Realia and also their senses, right? What else? Maybe you have had an experience like that. You can write it in the comments too. Oh, very good. Funny way to learn new vocabulary. Yes. Excellent. When I saw that this activity really worked, I was surprised and I said, oh my God, it really worked. And I started actually including, right, in my classes, those kind of tools that I am going to share with you in a moment. Appropriate tools, yes. They were wondering which animal they were going to be. Yes, surprise. Yes, they were surprised. They were very happy to play. Excellent, very good. All right. As you can see here, okay, let me see, because you can create an interactive environment with games, music, activities, and role play. Yes, you can. And actually, they love it. They love it. What went good? It was well, because as you said before, I had engaging materials. I had the hat, the toys. I included the senses. There was the surprise element in this activity, interactivity, right? Repetition in a fun way, repetition. Oh, this is a cow, right? And we were singing the song Old MacDonald for a couple of times, actually, right? And they were an emotionally positive environment, right? They were in. Excellent. And there was a connection as well. We were laughing. I really enjoyed that activity, right? So, well, according on those two experiences, we can apply what we have learned or maybe remembered about the way kids are, right? So the lesson here is that young learners need to experience, right? Language. They need to experience language, not just study it, right? And this is what we need to understand. We need to, well, actually teaching takes patience. It takes time. It needs you to be creative, right? And of course, it is also warning, right? Rewarding. All right, excellent. All right, with this experience, right, I am going to share with you some things that we can include in our classes and some things that it's better not to use. Well, let me start with a warm-up, right? Well, a warm-up is very important, as I said before, because it helps us to bring or to catch that children attention to the goal of the lesson that you have set, For example, you can use a song. You can use a short activity that help us to catch their attention and also to change their mood, right? I remember in some of my classes with children, they used to be very early in the morning. And sometimes children don't like to wake up early in the morning on Saturdays, for example. And the idea was to start creating a good environment for them to feel good, to change their mood, right? And a song is really, really helpful. A song or maybe a little activity that help you with that. I like to start with a hello song, for example, where we can say hello to each other, where they can dance. We can invent some choreography for them. We can dance with them. We can hold our hands together. And because the idea is, remember, to change their mood in order to build that connection, that good environment for them to learn. Also, we were talking about some in your comments. You said because when the activity went wrong is because they don't know how to follow instructions, and that is very true. When you give instructions, remember that they must be simple and they must be clear. For example, you can start when you are going to start a class, you have to present their objective, right? For example, today we are going to talk about animals, and that's it. Keep it simple because they are children, right? You can also use visual support. I'm going to tell you about in a moment. But some ideas that you can use are flashcards, pictures, really as I used in the experience that I told you. Movement activities, like maybe games. You can make them stand up, sit down, jump, point, right? Repetition, yes, also, as we saw, they feel confident when they repeat, right? Maybe you can use also songs that you can adapt to what you are teaching at that moment, right? And positive reinforcement, that is very important because remember that they see teachers as their protectors. So whenever they are doing a great job, try to say, oh, you are doing a great job, or high five, or maybe a stamp or a sticker. That's it, right? And a calm, clear ending. In the last part of the class, as a closure, it is important that you remind them what they have learned, but remember again in a simple way, right? In a simple way. Maybe you can use the flashcards, right? Something very short. Maybe they can tell you about what they can remember about the activity that you have learned, right? Those are things that we can include in our class. And what we cannot include are actually lengthy explanations. Remember that they just have 5 to 10 minutes on average to pay attention to what you are saying. Too much sitting still, remember my activity. Please remember that they cannot be sitting. They need movement, actually. Advanced language out of context also. Remember that the idea is that they learn, they don't get frustrated. So try to use language that they can understand. Punishment or shaming is out of the classroom, right? Remember that positive reinforcement, not punishing or shaming. And also overloading as well. Remember to keep everything you do in class simple, okay? Also, remember to establish your goals very clear for you too, so you know what you are going to teach in that session. Okay? All right. Well, talking about what we can and we cannot do in a classroom, let's talk about our tools and materials. Okay, and this is also something that I like to share according on what I have used in my own classes. With physical materials, I really recommend flashcards. Flashcards actually help us to make them imagine what you are talking about, right? I remember that I use flashcards in my classes. For example, I present the vocabulary first, I show them flashcards, and then I arrange the flashcards all around the classroom. I usually use a fly swatters. I give them a fly swatters, and then another student said, for example, apples. And the student with the fly swatters goes around the classroom looking for the apple and hits the apple. Okay, so flashcards help us to present our vocabulary. Also, puppets, they love puppets, even though they are older kids. They love puppets. At the beginning of the class is also something that you can include, right? To say hello, for example. No, hello, how are you today? How do you feel? What did you have for breakfast, for example, right? And that is another possibility for them to feel free to talk. They love puppets, definitely. All right, also real objects. In that experience that I told you about with the toys, another thing that I like to do when I present vocabulary is to ask them in advance for the next class to bring something to present the vocabulary. For example, imagine that we are going to talk about fruit. So I ask them, I don't know, for example, Juancito, you're going to bring an apple. I don't know, Anita, you're going to bring a banana, okay? So when they come to the class, they come with a fruit, and they can even present what they have brought. You give them the vocabulary, they present it, you also give them the prompts, right? For example, this is an apple, or that is a banana, no? And they present it with the realia that they have brought to the class. And this is also another thing that they usually enjoy. Posters. Yes, posters and wall visuals, depending on the activity that you are going to present, no? For example, under my experience, what I like to do is I paste a poster on the wall. Imagine that we are talking about colors, and then I give them a little circle with a color that we are learning on that day. For example, let's say that it's red. And I said, please find all the red color in this postcard or poster, right? In this poster. And they start pasting the little red circles all over the posters. So that is another idea that you can use in your class. All right. For virtual, well, actually, that is a good question. Thank you for asking. Actually, we have different types of alternatives. For example, when you are going to, or if you want to use Realia in a virtual class, you can also ask them in advance, of course, this must be in advance, what they are going to present in the screen. So you put here, for example, in your PowerPoint, you put a prompt, you say, no, it's an apple, and you model the activity. So you present the apple and you say, look, you guys, no, this is or it's an apple. It's the fruit that I brought. What about you, Anita? What did you bring? And they are going to present through the camera, and they are going to use a prompt that you have presented here in your PowerPoint. Also, talking about the posters, you can put a poster, you can present a poster in your PowerPoint, and you can ask them to use the tool of annotate, for example. No, it's very easy because you have them. You have this tool here, and you can say, for example, please, Anita, find all the red objects that you see here, and they are going to do this, right? Okay. Puppets is also another thing. You can actually show your puppet through the camera, and you can start talking. So you have a lot of possibilities, but it actually depends on your creativity as well, right? How you can use them, right? Flashcards is easier because you can paste flashcards in your PowerPoint and you can present them, right? And you can also, we have different web pages that are actually a good support for our classes, no? For games. We can also, sometimes we can prepare games in PowerPoint, or maybe another tools that you can use for your class, right? So that is a good question. Thank you. Okay, another thing that we can use are games, as I said before. Memory games, they love them, definitely. Especially when you present vocabulary, you can ask them, oh, look at this. Oh, that is a pencil. Where is the other pencil? And they like to play with those memory games, right? Board games. I love to when I am talking about the time, telling the time, I like, even for young adults, I do that. I print this when it's a face-to-face class. I print this game, and they start playing with dice. And virtually, we can do the same too. We have actually coins and dice, virtual ones that they can use with these kinds of games. And action games, definitely, even for virtual classes. You can ask them for, what about Simon Says, for example, right? You can ask Simon Says, bring an apple, something that you have taught previously, right? So we have seen games, right? And also my favorite ones, songs and chants. And this is as well. So actually, songs and chants are very important because they contain sentences, complete sentences, questions, answers that then you can adapt to what you are teaching, right? For example, this one, which is, do you like apples? No? And you can adapt it to your class, right? And they are going to answer because they have repeated so many times that they know how to answer a do you question. Songs to start your class, hello, to say hello, to say goodbye. That is very important. They love actually songs and chants. Another thing that I use, it's a chant actually, to catch my students' attention. When they are talking, they are noisy, I start, for example, with 5 fingers, clap, clap, clap. 4 fingers, butterfly, and they know. Finally, when you repeat it so many times, you just say 5. I say in my class, 5 fingers, and they continue. 5 fingers, clap, clap, and they know that they have to be silent. And also storybooks. Storybooks are very helpful because when you tell them stories, they imagine, they think they are in the story. But you have to remember that the language must be for them, not complicated, simple. That the books needs to show images. And you can also you can also close the story with a lesson that they can learn, values, and also you can ask them to draw their favorite part of the story. You can ask them to change the ending. You can ask them to draw their favorite character, and so those are tools that you can use to help them learn. They love storybooks, and all the students get involved. Yes, all the students get involved, actually. Excellent. Thank you for your comments. Thank you. All right. Now I would like to share with you a lesson framework. Okay. And I would like to share with you a basic structure for a 45-minute class. We usually have 45 minutes, but it depends on the place that we're working, right? So I would like to share with you a basic structure. All right, look at this. Well, actually, this is what I usually set on for my classes when we have 45 minutes. As I said before, you can adapt it where the place you are working or the group of children you're working with. So you have a warm-up for the first 5 to 7 minutes. You can make it longer as if you see that they are enjoying the activity, right? But it shouldn't last more than 10 minutes, actually, because remember that this is the period of time in which you are going to get your children's attention, okay? After that, you can continue with a presentation. Remember that at this point, it's very important to set the routines. For example, you're gonna start with a hello song. Maybe you can include a review of the previous topics. If you have the opportunity to maybe make a circle and sit down on the floor, you can do that. So that way they feel more comfortable and also they feel free to talk, to get at that connection with a teacher, with the other students. So sit down and you present your vocabulary, for example. You start with flashcards, or maybe a story, or maybe with a puppet. And you probably you're gonna take 10 minutes. Maybe you can make it a little bit longer if you have more students, maybe, because when you have another thing that you have to take into account is that they like to participate. If you bring puppets, they are going to stand up to try to touch your puppet. And maybe you can say, okay, but we are going to listen to what the puppet has to say today, and then you can play with a puppet. No? So you have to establish those the rules of the classroom, and you have to repeat. Remember repetition. So after you introduce the new language, definitely you have to play. You have to play. You have to include a game or a pair work, or maybe a song, a chant, something that help us use what they have learned, okay? And this is just the preparation for the production, right? Let them use the language in a simple task. Maybe they can role play a short dialogue, like, for example, no, this is my toy, right? And finally, a review and goodbye, right? Which is just short for about 3 to 5 minutes, right? This is a basic structure. All right, up to this part, I would like to know if you have maybe any question or comment that you would like to put in the chat. Maybe you have experienced something like what we have been talking about. All right, you can do it, actually. All right. So feel free to write the comments on the chat. And for final tips, I would like to share with you some golden rules. First of all, be patient, not only with the students. We as teachers are also learning how to teach. And as I said at the beginning, once I was told that we start like kittens, no? Because we have to understand where the children are like, the different groups that we are teaching as well. And this is a process for us. So we have to be patient with children, with our students, but also with us as teachers. So we have to be patient. Be animated as well. You have to, when you enter the classroom, you have to leave everything aside. And you have to do your best to do the class for your children, because your goal as teacher is that they learn and that they can reach the goals that you have set for the class. All right. Also, be consistent. It's also very important. Okay. Remember that in all the experience that you are going to have, you are going to see different activities that are going to work, but others that you can actually you have to analyze the context, the classroom itself, the group of students that you have. And be flexible as well. Be flexible. And it is related to be patient, because we're gonna see that some activities that work well with one group of students, maybe with another group of students, they don't work. And this actually happened to me a lot. And we have to be flexible with what we are going to present in our classrooms and everything, right? All the activities. And remember to build relationships. That's also very important. Remember that this is very important, to build that rapport with the students, connection, feelings. Be happy, says Nancy, of course, be happy. That is very important, because you are the reference for children to learn. So that's a must, definitely. You have to be. Actually, we know that teaching is actually what we love, right? And we have to remember that I love teaching. I love teaching, right? Okay, and remember this. This is a quote that I really like. Let's keep making English fun, one child at a time. One child at a time. Remember that. So thank you. Do you have any comments or questions? Please feel free to write them in the chat. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nilda. Thank you for your time, for the excellent presentation. I have some questions in the Google Forms. Maybe you can help us, and you can share some of your experience. There's one question that says, are some of these strategies that you mentioned, or can some of these strategies be used in your classes with young adults?
Definitely. Well, actually, I learned that if you learn to teach children, you are able to teach young adults and even adults. But remember that we need to adapt right? The type of language that you present for children is not going to be the same for adults. One activity that I do, for example, that I mentioned some minutes ago, when I am teaching, telling the time for the routines, I play with adults at our classes in Ricardo Palma. And I print the board game, and they play with dice. They work together, right, in groups of 2 or 3, and they take turns to tell the time. But this is another type of what I do with kids, because, well, when you teach adults, the way in which they tell the time is a little bit more complicated than for little kids, right? So you need to adapt. We adults and children, we like to play. We enjoy those activities. So it is important also, not all the time being, I don't know, listening to the teacher. We need to make some pauses and also play. So yeah, it is actually up to you, but you have to be very creative to adapt those activities and maybe present them in with a correct language according to the age that you are working with.
Yes, thank you very much. There is another question here. It says, how can motivation and attention span differ between, kids and young adults? Do they have the same attention span, or it's different?
Yeah, it actually changes as they get older. For little children, the average is actually less. You have 5 to 10 minutes, and then you have to make some pauses. When you teach to young adults or even adults, you need to make some pauses. Yes, they need to some kind of movement, but it's not the same as children. Maybe with children, you have to make some more pauses than in a classroom for adults, but they differ as they are getting older. Definitely.
All right. There's another question. It says, how does peer interaction in group work look different between kids and young adults?
Well, I think in both cases, you need to be there. You need to listen to what they are saying. You need to you need to give them the correct examples. You have to model. But with children, the conversations or the dialogues must be well, it depends actually on the ages that you are working with, but they start with the simple ones. And you have to make sure that they are talking about their own context, right? Because if you are talking or working with children, you are going to talk about toys, and maybe you have to prepare the dialogues according on the context, right? It's different. For adults, maybe you're going to talk about studies, careers, goals, but with children is another kind of topics. You have to be there in both cases. You have to listen to them. You have to make sure that they are doing correctly so they don't get frustrated as well. But you have to make sure that you are using the correct context for each of them.
Thank you very much. There's one last question. It says, well, it's about technology. We have a lot of questions related to that. So how do you incorporate technology differently when teaching children versus young adults?
Well, technology for children, I think that technology for children can be used. It has to be guided. You have to, because the one that is going to use the technology is the teacher. So you can use it to create games. I don't really recommend to use cell phones because sometimes they get distracted. Yes, for example, in the comments, Paola is saying with adults, you can use questionnaires or warm-up such as Kahoot, Quiz, Wizard, etc. Yes. But again, you have to make sure that this can be a good tool for what you are teaching. And so the idea is that they don't get distracted. With children as well, you can use technology to play with them, for example, to show them the vocabulary that you are presenting, the grammar, short sentences, to maybe you can ask them to help you to create some sentences or a story, or maybe you can record a video. I don't know. You can use those technology tools with them, but you have to guide them in order for them to learn and not get distracted.
Thank you very much. And just out of curiosity, at the school where you work, are cell phones allowed?
No, definitely no. And I really appreciate that. As I said before, I don't recommend the usage of cell phones, not even for children or adults, because sometimes, as I said, they get distracted. No, for children we have to be even more careful because of the context that we are living in right now. But no, in the school that I work in, cell phones are not allowed.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for your time for the presentation. We're going to move on to the next part of our conference. And so let me introduce Monica Melendez. She is, she holds a licentiate degree in translation and interpreting in English and French, issued by Ricardo Palma University, a master in education, educational policies, and management by San Martin University, a diploma in management of educational institutions and innovation in education, issued by EUCIM, a diploma in management of educational centers by IPAE, a teaching in higher education programs by Bausate y Mesa University, a diploma in coaching given by PUC, the TESOL program for language programs administrators, diploma issued by the University of Maryland in Baltimore County, and the specialization in teaching English as a foreign language at PUC. She is twice recipient of the Non-Traditional Student Scholarship at the University of Boulder, Colorado, USA. She was an English teacher at different language centers and schools until 2006. From 2006 to 2015, an academic supervisor of the adult program at IBNA and a coordinator of the academic area in charge of corporate classes at Euroidiomas. Currently, she is the director of the Specialization in English Language Teaching program at Ricardo Palma University, the director of the Language Center at Ricardo Palma University, and the coordinator of the English courses at the Basic Studies program at URP. So welcome, Monica. It's very, very good to have you here today. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Simon. I was wondering, before I get started and I share my very brief presentation, I was wondering whether teachers would find, I mean, when getting suggestions for working with kids, would you feel it would be better if the session were like face-to-face on campus? Because I guess when working with kids, most of us are working face-to-face with them, right? So I would like to hear, or well, not maybe hear, but read you on the chat box. What would you like it better? I mean, in case we have a new session for recommendations on how to work with kids, would it be better for you if we hold a session face-to-face at the university, or would you like it to be a virtual session again? So while people write their comments, I will share my presentation. All right, I would love to read you. Where is the chat box? Okay, virtual. Okay. I thought you wanted to dance, you wanted to sing with some of Nilda's songs, put into practice some of her recommendations, okay, because of the lack of time to travel, okay? Both, So what if we had the session, let's say, what if we held the session in a place that might be easy for everybody to get to, like, I don't know, maybe Miraflores? I know. Okay. Everybody's reading the chat box, right? I don't want to laugh on my own. Traffic is horrible. Traffic is terrible. Yes, I know. So maybe, what about the summer? Okay, awesome. Maybe the summer would be the ideal time to have a session for working with kids face to face at the university, because there is less traffic, the mornings are easy to handle. So you might not get that much, I mean, it might not take that much of your time if you move, I mean, from wherever you go to the university in Surco. So think about it. There are two things that we're going to have in the summer, as usual. We're going to have our course on grammar, especially designed for teachers of English. And we are going to have, as usual, for a fourth consecutive year, or fourth year in a row, we're going to have our pronunciation course for teachers of English. So how would you like that, to be part of those courses? We were wondering if, in addition to the courses that we usually, or the workshops that we usually hold in the summer, you would like it, for us to have, to organize a session on working with kids. Okay. So, as we have the recording of today's session, we are going to have all your suggestions into account, and based on that, come up with a new session. This year, we have organized how many? At least 11 conferences, especially designed for teachers of English. That is what we do at the university. We believe that we have to share everything that we have gathered in relation to ELT and share it for free. What is not for free is a certificate, right? However, it is for free for the students of the specialization program. What topics have we covered this year? We have talked about the social and emotional components of teaching English and working with primary and secondary students. That was a 4-hour workshop held a little bit more than a month ago. Then we had a diverse of sessions for SBS Librería Internacional. I hope you attended them. SBS is very kind in inviting us to work with the teachers in Peru and helping you grow professionally, giving you specific suggestions to implement in your class, as you saw in the first hour of today's session. And we also talk about theory. We explore theory, the current trends, whatever is driving education these days. In the past session for SBS Librería, we talked about what the future holds for teachers of English. And we ended up with this idea. We have to be very proud, because all the things that we are doing in the teaching of English field is being replicated in other teaching scenarios. People are making students work in groups, work in pairs, give presentations, debate, state their opinions, and back their opinions, talk about the future, talk about the present, analyze topics in relation to projects, in relation to topics, right? Under a big umbrella. And in some cases, the subjects or the topics of the courses are the same in a cross-curricular way. Let's say if history, for example, recent history events in Peru are being covered in the history class, They are kind of connected with the topics of the universal history in another subject or school subject, and they are also used as a reference for the math subject, and we see how important it is to cover those topics in life. However, how we cover certain topics and how we achieve some objectives have to be done in a different way, or the way we cover has to be implemented in a different way depending on the age group. And that is the topic that brought us here today. As Simon mentioned, my name is Monica Melendez. I'm the director of the specialization program. We have many, many topics to cover with you. We take more time deciding on what topics to suggest than on preparing them because the material is ready. And the students that are currently going on the program, that are current students, know that, and the graduates know that as well. However, there is always something new. That's why we invite our graduates to join these sessions, to get the certificates, to boost their CVs, to see what is going on outside their classrooms, to bring topics for debate and conversation, and to help you relax. You know, these sessions try to gather information for you so you don't have to spend a lot of time digging on information everywhere. And they also help you connect you with fellow colleagues, maybe in other schools and in other teaching scenarios. Is it that different to work with kids and to work with young adults and adults? This chart is going to be shared with you and will be sent to you together with the certificate. We are going to upload a summary of today's session, not the whole thing, just a summary on our YouTube channel. So I would like to ask Simon to give me a hand by placing on the chat box the address, the web address of our YouTube channel, which you are currently a follower of, right? Everybody's following Idiomas Ricardo Palma on YouTube, yes, on Instagram. It is a good idea to do it because you can, get to know what's going on in the program. Do you remember any of the songs that you were taught when you were learning English as a kid? There is a song that I always remember. I don't know if you remember. I should play the music here. It was called Head and Shoulder, Knees and Toes. Please write on the chat box if you remember that song. I'm going to invite somebody to sing the song. I should ask my husband to come because he's a singer. He might sing it well. But this song was fun because it had some movement, remember? Head and shoulder, knees and toes. Who remembers the song? Do you think it would be appropriate to use songs with adults? Yes, yes. One principle behind teaching English is that it has to be a fun experience. We are not saying that all the classes need to resemble, what goes on in a circus. No. But it has to be a lively experience. Maybe the methods and the specific techniques can differ. What shouldn't be different is the mood, the energy, and the aim to make this place a place that is fun to go to, that you desire to attend, that you know that is going to be a good life experience. So we are maybe drawn to classrooms because we love learning. We have to make students love learning too. One thing that happens to teachers when they go to classrooms is that they forget about everything. We are so focused on our students that we forget that we had problems at home. Maybe, the traffic was terrible, as somebody was saying. I mean, when you move around Lima, it gets to you, right? Because all these things that happen socially and economically can drain all your energy. But when you go to the classroom, you feel energized by the students, by the groups, by the topics. So we want you to help students develop the same desire, regardless of the age. There are things that are different, and they are stated here, but there are things that should be the same amount of energy, the same amount of fun, the same focus from you. Yes, the same amount of energy in preparing the classes and the sessions, and the same amount of dedication in learning, in working on your professional growth, to keep on identifying elements that can help your life in the classroom and outside the classroom better, so that you don't spend that much time preparing a lesson plan, so that you don't spend that much time inventing a song that has probably already been invented. So when we talk about kids and young adults, we have to first identify the following. Kids are discovering life with you in the classroom. They might not have that many habits. They are going to develop habits with you, and they are going to find that the world is a good place to live with you in the classroom. So that is exploration and play, the first line in our chart. Adults bring to classroom experiences, knowledge. They have very well set ideas in their heads. So we have to build based on that. And we also have to instill in young adults and adult students the aim to relearn, to learn how to learn, and to reason and to explain why they believe such a thing, or try to understand what happened to them and learn out of those experiences. So if they come to you thinking that English is grammar, and that grammar is boring, or that, they are adults, so they don't need books because they are adults, they are grown-ups. Why do I need a book? You have to debunk all those myths with them, but understand and accept that they are going to come to you with certain ideas that might not be the same ideas or the same principles of life that you hold, and that is fine, because we are working with human beings, and we want human beings to keep on growing, not only to learn English, but to grow as people with you. And what is also going to happen to you, you're going to grow with them. So that is the fun part of being a teacher. Yes, we keep on learning, we keep on growing, we keep on developing. Classes are fun. They are not therapy, but they sometimes feel like therapy for teachers. The second thing that I would like you to take into account when working with adults and young adults is curiosity. Kids are naturally curious. Sometimes we have to tell them not to do certain things that they want to try out on their own to see what happens, right? They might believe you, they might not, but they are naturally curious. It is belief, no, it is science has confirmed. It's not just a belief, it's not a hypothesis, it's reality based on science. That starting from 9 and 10 years old, kids stop drawing because they think that that's a thing that kids do, and they want to show that they have grown. They want to show to people that they are not the little kids that they used to be anymore. So that statement implies stopping doing certain things that are probably connected as usual, or that they are seen as usual in kids, such as drawing. And the second thing is asking questions. What do you think about that? Do you think it's okay for people to stop drawing when they are 9 or 10? Why do kids stop doing that? Maybe it is because in class somebody told them that flowers are not purple or that roses are red, or probably because they said something and somebody told them that that was silly and they stopped being curious because they didn't want people to make fun of them. And the other thing that is believed is that classes for young adults and adults have to be serious. So here is we do things very fast. Everybody's with their laptop, with their cell phone, you know, because time is money, and we lose the sense of happiness in the classroom. So I want you to see that this is a natural trait when working with kids. You know, your classes have to be embedded by activities that in their very core, you know, make them be curious and enjoy activities. But that also has to be shown when working with adults, because the classroom is the real life. That is one thing that we have to always remember and internalize. Life doesn't stop when they get into the classroom. Once again, joy and fulfillment doesn't have to do with laughing all the time. It is a moment of well-being. It is a moment when I feel that I am in the correct place, that I am doing something that is going to be useful for me. And when I feel in a place where I feel appreciated, and that when I talk, I am being listened. So your students, when they are kids, they might be driven by different things than adults and young adults. They are going to be motivated if they are kids, usually by, well, the stickers, yes, of course. Yes, it used to be stamps. In my times, it used to be stamps, you know, the kids, we used to get like Spider-Man stamps, maybe not Spider-Man, maybe something else. But now there are different ways of praising kids, right? Maybe we put a sticker or we write down a note for the parents, and the students feel praised and they feel accomplished, because that's one thing that drives them. The other thing is compliments from their parents, from their families, from their teachers, of course. They love you. They admire you. They look up to you. So whatever you tell them that makes them feel fulfilled is going to stay in their minds. Do you think that adults will care for praising? Of course. But in addition to that, they have different motivations because they need a certificate, they need probably they are seeking for a promotion, they need the certificate that says that they are at an intermediate or an advanced level. If there is anybody from the university here, maybe they need the certificate to get the degree they are pursuing at Ricardo Palma or at any other university. They want to get another job, they want to move abroad, they want to get a scholarship, they want to apply as tenor teachers. For all those things, they go to English class. So in addition to being praised by their fellow students, their fellow friends, their fellow workers, they are going to feel okay if you praise them. But in addition to that, they have other reasons for going to class with you. So this is very clear, right? It doesn't mean that we are going to leave curiosity and enjoyment behind. We are going to add it, and have in mind that in addition to that, what drives people, young adults and adults to class is something very specific, right? Specific motivation that is going to make them probably do better than they currently are doing. When we talk about the context, which is described here as the learning context, we have to keep in mind that when working with adults, we are with kids, sorry, we are the authority. So we need to organize classes that have habits, that have a structure. There is always a sign, as Nilda was mentioning, there is always a sign that says or that implies that everybody has to be quiet. You know, there is going to be a sign for people when they want to participate. You know, these structured classrooms, habits, routines, specific instructions, as Nila was mentioning, are core to the good development of a kid's class. Do we need that when working with young adults? Of course, we need habits. We need to say hello, we need to be kind, we need to be respectful. There needs to be a sense of a structure. You are going to be the one that is going to make the decisions in class. However, these classes need to have a purpose. So they are usually connected to daily routines, to work scenarios. They have to do with what brought adults to class. So when you choose a book, for example, you need to have that into account. If I'm working with kids, well, I'm going to look for these things that are going to help me bring structure to class. And when I'm working with young adults or adults, I need to see topics that I know they are going to care for, that are going to be interesting for them, that are going to keep them motivated, okay? Do you need a book full of information? No, because we don't know if we're going to have enough time to cover a lot of information. You need the correct amount of information, and the correct amount depends upon the number of hours that you have for the course. Have you or are you one of the people in your educational institution that makes the decisions on what books to use in class? I'm reading the chat. Maybe Saturdays. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Jose. I'm gonna build up on what you just wrote. You know what? One of the things that I like the most about working with adults and young adults is that I don't get bored. Well, I don't get bored with kids for different reasons. But because when working with kids, I like to sit on the floor. I like to play with them. I like my childhood. I loved it, and I mean, I wish it had lasted a little longer. So whenever I have the time, I become one of the kids. But when working with young adults and adults, I become more of a listener because I have fun with their stories and I let them talk. Sometimes what we hear is probably, a story that might make you be worried, about the student as a person. And that's why I always say that the English class is this field that has been always, one step forward other educational fields, because we have developed the habit of dialogue and conversation. And that is a key core, a key element in today's life. People are supposed to have soft skills. And one of those soft skills is working in pairs, working in groups, being able to talk coherently, cohesively, and being able to talk, clearly, and also to be able to listen, to be an active listener. So young adults and adult classes are interesting for that specific element, for all the stories that your students bring to class that can help you as a warm-up. Nila mentioned a lot the warm-up. Warm-ups are present in both types of sessions, whether you're working with kids or with grown-ups. They are interesting when you walk around or you become part of the group, when students are working in person groups, or when you go to the breakout room and you hear their stories, or when you're going to wrap up the class, when they paraphrase, when they report what their friends said, when they summarize, when they participate as a whole class activity. In all those moments, what they say makes classes even richer, even more interesting. And from that to being meaningful, you are very close. So one thing we need to know is that making our English class look like real life makes it meaningful for both groups. Maybe adults are going to find it more useful easily and faster because they are going to say, okay, you know what, this I like, this I'm able to talk in class. So when I have the opportunity to talk to somebody in English outside my English class, I'm going to be super confident because I talked in class and my teacher praised me. So they are going to find the practicality of going to class and their motivation is going to increase. Teachers at the university, English teachers, are currently working on several investigations that have to do with the latest trends on teaching English. Teaching English and artificial intelligence, teaching English and digital tools, and teaching English and cross-curricular topics or cross-curricular competences, such as soft skills, such as critical thinking. I invite you to do that with your own classes, with your own groups. Get a journal, you know, maybe get together a couple of instruments or artifacts for creating a teaching portfolio. Observe somebody else's class, invite somebody to your class, get feedback from peers, get feedback from your coordinator or supervisor, and grow from there. Because regardless of the age group, one thing that happens is that we are all the time doing something that we don't have enough time for reflection. We don't have enough time to analyze things, but another set of eyes, another pair of eyes is going to be very helpful. And they are going to probably help you make the learning context easily structured or more easily structured, and are going to help you identify, you know, probably ways in which students talk and what kind of help they need. Maybe they need help with grammar or the structures of the language. Maybe they need help with vocabulary. Maybe there is one student that always needs prompts or examples. You know, those type of things are going to be more easily recognized if somebody else gives you a hand. Learning styles, well, one thing that I have told you is that, you know, regardless of how serious topics might seem in an adult class, we have to keep on instilling curiosity and make classes enjoyable, right? However, there are things that are a little bit different regardless, depending on the age group. When we work with kids, we have to remember, as Nilda clearly mentioned, that they cannot and should not be seated for a very long number of hours. We have to see human beings as a whole, as people with a voice, with agency, which is a very popular term these days. Kids have to be part of the decision making. You are the last one to decide. You are the one who is going to listen to all the voices and make the last decision. You have the last call. However, they have to be part of all the ideas that you will gather or that will get together to choose what to do in class. They can suggest, kids can suggest ideas for games, for routines, for all the things that are for songs, for movies, for documentaries, or all the things that you want to bring to class. And when working with young adults, we have to keep in mind, well, time is precious in both scenarios. However, it needs to be more connected to things that are going to keep them motivated. So it is hard to balance that, right? Because, okay, classes have to be filled with things for keeping them curious, okay? They have to be structured, they have to be focused, and they have to be interesting for them. And that's why we need spaces like this, where you get ideas all gathered, organized. And based on this, you're going to dedicate probably fewer hours to looking up theory or looking for theory or analyzing theory. And based on these suggestions and principles, make the right decisions for your classes. In the program, we go in depth into these topics because today we only have an hour and 45 minutes. However, the program is made up of 8 modules. Each module lasts 4 weeks. And in each week, we have 8 hours, 8 full hours of studying together with a teacher that is also a mentor, with a teacher trainer who is also a specialist on ELT that is going to solve our suggestions and that is going to give us examples. So time, unfortunately, today is a constraint, but we also want to make it clear that there is a place in our country that is giving you the opportunity to expand on these topics for your professional growth, yes, for solving the problems that you have in your classes, for shining, being probably the specialist of English in your educational institution, for answering your questions to things, that worry you in your teaching practice, and for seeking for that or getting at that job you always dream of. For all those reasons and maybe more, we have the specialization program, which I feel very happy to be part of. Finally, we have, in relation to responsibility, our classes, I think in both scenarios, have to be learner-centered, centered in the students. However, you are going to be the role model when working with kids. So as a role model, you need to guide them and keep on constantly motivating them. Okay. And when working with adults, you have to bring to class things that are going to be connected to what they aim at, to what interests them. And based on that, make classes more motivational, more interesting. Increasing motivation implies that they will get to the degree or to the certificate that they are hoping to get through the course. We have two more 3 principles and then one little chart, and with that we are going to finish. Remember that this isn't the only place where we tackle these topics. Okay, so our first principle: children depend on external motivation while adults thrive on self-motivation and relevance to real-life goals. It doesn't mean, remember, that our classes are going to be, serious and all tied up when working with adults. Not at all. We are going to make our classes fun because we are the ones who first have to have fun in class. We need to feel that, your time that is precious is being used correctly, that you are doing something that is going to have a positive impact on your students' lives, so that when they see you outside, they are going to greet you with a smile. They're going to say, "That's my teacher. There goes my teacher. I feel very happy to have worked with him in Inglés 1, in Inglés 1, in Inglés A, in English 101, in basic, or whatever the course is named." We are going to select information, yes, depending on the age, but we are going to go to class with the same energy and with the same purpose. to make our English class a rich life experience. Young learners benefit from active guided experiences. And I would add to this that not because you are working with 16, 17, 25-year-old, it means that they are going to visit it all the time. No. There are different ways to group them, to make them work in pairs. Giving presentations is also fun. Now, I will ask the question that Simon was asking at the end of Nilda's section of today's presentation. Why do kids need, or why do adults need cell phones and laptops in your class? It's something that I always think upon when I observe classes. If they are with you and you are talking and they have to look at you, why are they with their laptops open? Because they only have two eyes. I mean, they either look at you or their partners, whether they're working in pairs or groups, or their laptops. And to what extent does it benefit them to be doing 2, 3, and sometimes 4 things at the same time? Because it's not only the laptop or the tablet, it's the laptop or tablet, the teacher, the partner, and the cell phone. Or do they turn off their cell phones when they walk into class? When working with kids, it's easier to manage because there are classroom regulations, institutional policies. The Minedu says that, cell phones are not allowed in school areas, in educational places where there are kids, primary and secondary. However, when you work with grown-ups, how active does it make the class to have, all these technological devices at hand? I'm going to take a sip of my coffee while you write an answer on the chat. Irene, what is the best book? It depends. It depends. That's why we give you the principles so that you, knowing your groups, make the right decisions. At the university, we use National Geographic Learning. Why do we use National Geographic Learning? Because we believe what they say when they design their books. Bringing the classroom to life and the life to the classroom. So the world gets into the classroom through the book and all the other extensions of the book. The digital book, the platform, the world is there at the palm of their hands with the stories from people around the world, with the idea that we do not need to have a specific accent when talking in English. That doesn't make you be a better speaker or have a better command of the language. Because nowadays, the idea that we bring is that we need to speak a global English, an English that is understood by everybody around the world. Remember, if you guys attended the 7th session for SBS, we mentioned that there are more people using English as a foreign language than as a mother tongue. There are actually 3 times more million of people using English as a foreign language. So for me, for the group that I work with, for the university students that are going, there is expression that says in the world. I guess it's what it's the way it is worded in English. They're going to work in Peru probably, pursuing the career, of the major they're currently studying at the university. They are going to work in Peru probably, but chances are they are going to study abroad and they are going to work abroad. We don't know. Or, which is even more likely to happen, they are going to work through their computers for, places that are not geographically near them. Maybe for a company in in London, or a company in Hong Kong, or a company in Ottawa. I don't know. So I want to leave you with this, for you guys to ponder. Do you need your students to have their laptops, their cell phones? No. If we know that it is a principle for young learners, kids, to be active, to some extent, will it be helpful to make your classes active when you're working with grown-ups and young adults? The answer is yes, yes. Standing up activates your body and it helps your brain get oxygen. So that is, breaks the monotony, and classes are going to be energized once again. They are going to meet more people than the person they usually sit with or sit next to. So this principle is a must when working with kids, but please keep it in mind when you work with grown-ups. Our third principle, adults benefit from autonomy, discussion, and reflection. Yes, one thing that they need to know is that there are oral paragraphs and there are written paragraphs. And when they talk, if they are at a basic level, there should be at least two ideas. Anytime they say something, it's, if they say yes, they have to say because and something else. Dialogue is a principal human activity. It is our essence. It is our core, and it is something that they do with you in the English class. Learning how to talk is gonna help them in life. It's gonna help them in situations when they need to express their beliefs, their emotions, to make them mentally stable. And it's going to make their lives more joyful because they are going to connect with people in ways that we need people to feel connected these days. So there is discussion, there is dialogue, there is conversations, yes. And because of that, there is also going to be reflection. There is going to be active listening. And with that, they are going to feel maybe proud, but confident to use English in other scenarios. That is when they talk and also when they write. One thing that we are forgetting is to make people write in the classrooms. There are two things that we are suggesting in the program people do when they learn English. Read in the classrooms, write in the classrooms. Lately we have been seeing, especially at the intermediate and advanced level, that some students, since the rubrics don't indicate per se to what extent I am able to use ChatGPT, they are bringing things that they are not writing. I know that, this is even more serious in courses where they have to write essays in Spanish, for example. It is becoming a really troublesome, scenario. However, there are still things that we can do. What you can do, to help students develop this autonomy in writing is, for example, include in the rubrics how much of generative AI they can use. I would say none, because I believe, and this is something, ChatGPT was developed 2 years ago, and it is the trend like for over a year or even a little bit more, a year and a half. If you ask students to write an essay and to give you the prompt that they use to make their essay better, you will end up reviewing two things, not only one. So do you have time? No, because you need to rest. You need to go to the movies. You need to take a break. You need to sleep. Don't double your work, trying to make sure that you get your student, cheating on an essay. Instead of that, we propose making students write in the classroom with prompts that you give or with guidelines or instructions that you give in the classroom. that are not written on the book, that you didn't tell them, the day before. Do they need to work on long-term writing? Of course, but that shouldn't be, the only grade that they get in the course. And if you doubt at what they are writing, or what they write doesn't seem like the person you have in front of you, or it doesn't seem that he or she wrote it, ask questions. Do not make a big pile of things to correct or take home, because people at home also need you, and you need time to rest. But make sure that the rubrics indicate that there is going to be a writing grade, a writing component in the summative evaluation, and that they need to develop both, the ability to speak and the ability to write. And do it in the classroom. We no longer know for sure that if we assign a writing task, they are going to do it by themselves. Same with reading. If you want them to be good writers, they need to be good readers. If you assign a book, will they read it? Will they buy the book? Will they get the book? Make them read in the classroom. And for that, at an institutional level, we always suggest to have books handy to give to the students. Books, that are real, that are printed, because there is a real connection when you grab the book, which is different when the book is digital. I'm going to end up with two charts. First, suggestions that I have taken from Nilda's presentation, and suggestions that we are adding based on the theory that lies beneath teaching English to young adults and adults. Okay. Don't worry, because together with the certificate, we are sending these, all these slides. They're very few. When we talk about, for example, and this is the last item of the second chart, teaching English to adults. When we talk about specific things that motivate them, what motivates them better than learning in class with you how to write an email, how to write academic English, how to start a presentation, specific suggestions. Role-playing interviews, role-playing, I am the doctor, you are the patient. I am the lawyer, you are the client. These type of role plays that give them more confidence when the real situation takes place. Finally, I think this isn't the finally. I'm going to stop sharing to look for my final chart. And before I go, I would like to ask you to tell me if you have any question. I don't see any questions. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna share my presentation one more time, because from this chart, I would like you to tell me the heading. The first column, what does it refer to? Teaching English to kids or teaching English to grown-ups? Let's see. We already have the answers. Simon is asking us to fill out the attendance form. And, if the first one refers to working with kids, the second one is a super short summary of working with young adults. I hope, I'm certain, and I hope this information is helpful. I hope to see you in the program. If not this year, we're starting on October 30th. There is going to be, how can I call it? Better program? No. Probably more embellished, yes. more current program in 2026. When? Well, it's usually in March and April, but this group is starting in 2 weeks. Yes, on October, in a week, I guess, October 30th. And for people that have attended today, we have some information. We are going to give you the interview and the exam to confirm your level of English for free. The program is made up of 8 modules. The graduates know, the current students know. These are our schedules for people wondering. Mr. Jose Gonzalez is the main teacher of the program. He has 4 modules where he helps you get better at using English. And in addition to that, learning about the foundations of teaching English these days. And I have to highlight and make an emphasis on that. These are the modules organized by area of study. The program adds up to more than 400 hours. It isn't a program of the Language Center. It is a program of the university, and the diploma is issued and signed by the rector of the university. These are some of the things that the program holds. Yes, there are real classes with real students. It's a very fun part of the program. We are covering, every year we have different workshops. We have had, in these 98 years of the program, we have had only 4 social emotional workshops every 2 years. And the last one was held in September. We have had only 2 sessions on what it takes to teach English in Peru. One was in 2018 and the other one was in 2021 or 2022, I guess. So there are so many things to talk about that we don't usually, repeat the topics. We also help institutions and organizations, develop a series of things. Checklists to observe, syllabi, lesson plans. We can train people for observing. We develop exams and can help institutions find a way to develop exams. This information is going to go together with the material. I hope we get to see each other again, if not at a virtual or on-campus session, face-to-face session, probably in the program. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Simon. I don't know if you have any final words. Thank you.
No, just thank you for the lovely part of your conference, teaching kids versus teaching grown-ups, young adults. So we expect to see you all in the program. We start on October 30th. And we'll be very happy to, if you want to be part of the program, you will receive the information to your email. So you will expect that you will hear from us. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next event conference for you. So thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.